Hello and welcome to live number 18. My name is Oren Gabay. I'm with OpenLM. And this is part two of yesterday's live about license harvesting. Yesterday we spoke about how do we detect that someone is idle, what is the criteria, when is it really idle, and we spoke about what it does to our license pool utilization. The answer is clear, and today we will continue in order to close this subject. And let's assume that we do it, and we detected a user that is idle, and we decided based on all different parameters that we decided what is the utilization of the whole license vendor and so on. We decided that we would like to harvest this specific license. So what are the options? So the best option would be definitely to use the vendor tool. So if the vendor provides the mean to do this, then we should use it, and definitely. There are some vendors that do provide this capability, for example, Autodesk, even MATLAB. So how do you do it? In the options file, we define something called timeout. The vendor typically limits the minimum time. So the minimal time, which is the lowest, I think it's by Autodesk, so it's 15 minutes of idle time. And I've seen different limitation. Most vendors don't support timeout. So if you're connected regardless of if you're active or not. In MATLAB, for example, the time is 4 hours. So this is actually a question, but maybe we'll discuss it in the third part. So now we have a third part, but let's say, okay, if there is a vendor tool, if there is a vendor capability that does this, it can close the software when it's idle, we will use it definitely. Even though maybe I need to say that it's very limited. So even, yes, it exists, but there are many limitations. And in most cases, we have seen that it doesn't really work. So you actually need the second option, which is to implement the closer in another way. So how can you do it? The first method is by developing an extension or a plugin, something that goes into the product and is able to use the product API in order to close it. So let's say implementation we did, for example, for Esri software, it's an extension. We load it with the software. So it always runs. Whenever a user is loading the software, then the extension is also loaded. The extension is monitoring the things that are done on the software. So whether it's active, not active, processing, not processing, what kind of extensions are in use, and so on. Everything is measured and sent to the server. The server has the decision. So based on user criteria, it can decide whether it should be closed or not. So let's say the agent reports, the extensions reports to the server gets the reports, it says, okay, this is the load, I'm active, not active, and then the server gets the decision that it needs to be closed, sends the message, says, close yourself. So what do we need to do? We need to see whether we have maybe active connections to databases, to different servers, and then we need to close them. We would like to save the project for the user. So when the user comes back and wants to continue his work, he can continue exactly from the same point. We would like to close everything in a normal way and leave a link to the user. So the user, when he comes back, where is my software? Okay, that was closed. Click it, reopens exactly the same as you left it, and you can continue your work. So this is a very good method to close the software. It's well organized, supports the user. It can give us additional capabilities, which are very important, but out of scope of this life. But it's a good method. It's very clean. The second is to use server commands. So, for example, can I tell the software that to disconnect it from the license server, make sure it's not working, maybe by suspending it, and by that saying, okay, it's suspended on the user's desktop. I remove the license on the server side, so it's legal, it makes sense, and someone else can use the license. When the user comes back, he wants to resume the session. So resuming depends on existing license. So once the software resume, it will need to grab a license. So I would like to make sure before resuming that there is an available license. So I check whether there is an available license, and if there is one, I can resume it. I resume it, it consumes the license, and I can continue working. So that's another way. And this doesn't require any development within the product. So I don't have to. The third way is maybe by using API to do the actions on the software. And there are other methods I won't go into further details. But let's think, okay, in all these methods that we spoke about, what kind of limitation we might have that might make it problematic. So first problem is very big CAD projects. So let's say we have a huge CAD project loaded into the software, and if I let's save the project, close it, the user comes back, click, and it takes 5 or 6 minutes to restore the project back. It happens because the files are amazingly big. So that's a problem. In such cases, the organization will probably say, no, we will pay the price, we won't close. So this is one problem. Second problem might be connections. So if you have database connection, PLM connection, can you disconnect it? If you don't disconnect it in an organized way, is it causing problems? So if you are connected to PLM and you just close it and it's okay, the PLM knows you're not connected, license released, or it's a named license, no problem, you can use it. But sometimes there are problems. Sometimes you have edit actions that are done. So the user is now on an edit session, is editing something and left the computer. Okay, it's idle, but there is an active edit session. So do you close, or maybe not? Maybe you give up in that case. Also, sometimes there is a distributed processing. So, okay, I run the software on my workstation. Maybe I finish doing something and I want to render it. I click render, it goes to the server for rendering or for other processing. There are many different type, and on that time, my machine, my software instance is idle, but it's connected to the server that is doing the processing. So if I close the software on my desktop, will it still get the finalized rendering? What will happen? This is something that needs to be tested on a specific software to make sure it works. We did that, and there are some type of software doesn't allow that while processing is done on the server. Another option that I have processing on my workstation, so I need to be able to identify it and not close the software. So it's very complex, and in some cases, vendors won't allow you to use an API to do what you need. So save the project, close it, and so on. This is something that needs to be checked for each specific software. So to summarize the second part, and we might have a third part for it, closing license harvesting is complex, but extremely rewarding for the organization. So if the organization managed to implement that on its software, it's extremely rewarding. So you can count on my word for it. Of course, that in many cases it requires the installation of agents, and you need someone to manage that, but it's worthwhile. So I would like to thank you for watching. We'll have the third part tomorrow, and I wish everyone a good day. Thank you.